Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Learn with Jason. Today on the show, we're bringing back Fred. How you doing, Fred?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
I'm thrilled to have you back. It's always a pleasure to kind of talk to you about the way that the web is moving, which I think we're going to spend a decent amount of time on today. But before we jump into today's subject matter, let's talk a little bit about you. You want to give a background for folks who aren't familiar with your work?
Oh yeah, I've been working on Astro for so long. It's kind of my main thing now. But before this, I was working on a project called Skypack and a build tool called Snowpack. If you use Vite, it was very similar, kind of early days of exploring that space alongside them. Before all of that, there's a project called Pika, which was kind of this like umbrella of research almost lab, working on cool stuff like this. And before that, I was at Chrome at Google. So
Nice.
I've been working on open source and the web for a long time now, and really excited with where it's headed.
Very cool. That's super exciting. So, how do we even want to start this, right? Like it feels to me like we are in what I would consider to be a kind of a watershed moment for the web. And let me contextualize that, because I feel like there's a lot of things at play. This isn't like one thing. So what I've been watching is, since 2015, we've sort of watched React eat the whole market. Like, everything is built in React. It's kind of the default for anything that starts, and it's, for good reason. It's a great framework or library, however you want to categorize it. And we sort of saw competition like turn into niche things. Like you would have like, oh well, you have this niche framework over here, this niche framework over here, but if you're gonna go production, you got to go React, right? And in the last year or so, it feels like we've seen legitimate contenders come up for the first time ever. Like, people are, I think, they're hitting the limits of effects. And like React Hooks API is wonderful until you hit those edge cases, and then it gets really confusing. And so people have been kind of running up into those as they hit bigger and bigger use cases. And we've seen like Solid.js with Ryan Carniato is really posing a like, hey, what if this was simpler, right? And Svelte is putting some really interesting stuff out with like, hey, what if this was just simpler, right? Like, maybe we don't need all this stuff. We're seeing these disappearing frameworks like Astro. We're seeing 11D make a really solid play as like, no, this is for real websites. This isn't like what developers use for their blog. You can use it for anything, right? And we're just starting to see this really interesting shift where maybe for the first time in a long time, there's a challenge for React as like the king of the hill for production frameworks. At the same time, we're also seeing this general shift in the way that we think about JavaScript on the web, because I think in the early days, around the time jQuery went popular, you needed a JavaScript framework because the browsers were so inconsistent that you couldn't write JavaScript without all this normalization. And then when we got to the Angulars and the Reacts and the other kind of explosion of big frameworks, those we're doing the same thing. Like, a bunch of the work in React is around this idea of a virtual DOM, of the synthetic event system, all these things that allow us to smooth over the inconsistencies between browsers. But that's not as true anymore. Browsers are really starting to come together. We've got some pretty predictable APIs. So people are starting to question, like, do we really need all that JavaScript? Is all of that JavaScript actually necessary to ship great website experiences? Which has led to some interesting things. We've got this idea of like, well, maybe we should go back to not shipping JavaScript by default. Maybe that's the right idea. We see this with 11D, with Astro, with several other frameworks that are coming out. We've seen this push with like React to go to server components, where maybe we don't need to ship the JavaScript side of React at all. Svelte is pretty good at disappearing. A lot of its JavaScript disappears. And then there's this other thing that I think is really interesting that you've been talking about a lot, which is this idea of like, maybe we should just go back to multi-page apps. Like, maybe SPAs weren't the right move. And all of that is kind of context for what I want to talk about today, which is, where do we see the web going from here? Because I feel like all of those things mean that we might be about to watch a big shift in the way people build for the web. And I'm very excited for it. I love competition in the space. I love seeing these frameworks kind of giving each other ideas and building off of each other's strengths and compensating for each other's weaknesses, because that's pushing us all to be better. It means that I, as a developer, get a better end experience and my users get a better end experience. I've now monologued for like 3 solid minutes. So
No, it's honestly what I love about this show, because it's like, let's talk about Astro by talking about like the entire web, like the state of our industry, of our technology, going back. Like, there's a lot. Yeah, it's a fun part of this project too, is that it kind of touches all of that. It doesn't exist in a vacuum. Yeah, it's all stuff that I think about a lot. So it's fun to get a chance to come on here and talk about it with you.
yeah. And so maybe let's just start with a quick overview. What is an SPA and what is an MPA for setting the base context here?
Yeah, and maybe even let me go into that, because there's something that you touched on which I think is really important to this story, which is, if you think of like Next.js, the world that came into, it was like React, Next.js, people are using Create React app, but it's
Right.
slow and they're having trouble. Like, there was this kind of tool that came along, which I think we now call an SPA, or meta framework, or SPA like, which is this idea of we can actually offer a like incredible developer experience by just use React everywhere. And SvelteKit would say use Svelte everywhere, and Next would say use Vue everywhere. So this idea of like, let's use a component framework everywhere, is a really incredible developer experience, because you're just building this like app-like thing that's super dynamic, and you're on your MacBook, so it's moving really fast, and you're on local host, so it's loading really fast. This great developer experience that I think over time, kind of the like, when all you have is a hammer, everything's a nail. Like, over time, it just got so good and so much better than everything that came before it, that it became the like silver bullet that was pitched. Build your blog with a big framework. You build a simple static site, a kind of like hello world, like learn web development through these frameworks. And that's, I think, that we've maybe passed too far beyond what makes sense for those users. And that's where Astro kind of fits in here. I think that's this MPA renaissance that 11D with Zach Coleman's doing a great job of pushing. We're trying to push.
Zach Leatherman.
Leatherman, sorry. Zach Coleman is a blogger from a long time ago. Zach Leatherman, thank you, is an awesome proponent of this model. So yeah, we're really excited to be sharing the space and kind of help pushing that new model. We think it makes a lot of sense for a lot of users who just aren't well served. They're getting great developer experience, but it's way too much. Can we give a similar developer experience that's more designed for them and their use case? And that's where MPAs fit in there.
And I think, for me, what I found was, back in about 2015, 2016, I was working on a few applications. I had this R&D contract, and what they were wanting to build was a sort of, it was actually really similar to the way that Zoom works online now, but the intention was that you would be able to give a workshop with it. So you would have live video, and the instructor would be controlling a slideshow, and like all the videos would be on screen. Everybody's slideshow would be synced, lots of stuff like that. And as I was doing this, I was like, there's no way I can build this in the web, right? Like 2015 browsers were not going to let this function. Like you needed some way to cover over the inconsistencies in WebSocket. You needed ways to handle this like data transition change. You wanted to make all these pieces work. And so you start reaching toward JavaScript, this component-based stuff, because you could just control it on the browser. I didn't have to make the browser do anything. I just had to get a div on the page, and then I shoved the whole application into that div. And for this particular application, that was fine. But that kind of became the default, right? Like if you inspect source on a whole lot of websites these days, what you get is just an HTML screen with a div ID app, right? And that's like your entire JavaScript disabled experience. And so like single page apps are really, really powerful when they are apps, when there's literally no way that this thing will function if it's not powered by JavaScript. And I think we've even seen like Remix is challenging that assumption a little bit and saying like, even these really complex apps, you can run them in just the browser. The platform is really powerful these days. But there's still a place, I think, for super complex, super high changing, doesn't need to be URL addressable kind of stuff. Like single page apps still have a place. I think they'll continue. Yeah. Parasocial meta learning was saying like that's probably going to stick around for a long time. But I
Yeah,
feel like your
absolutely.
point,
There's certain things you're building that totally work for that. Yeah.
yeah,
It's the fun thing about Astro is we don't say like we're the best tool for every type of site. We're like, no, if you're
right.
building something that's really app-like, you can probably find a better framework out there. We're there for the stuff that isn't app-like and that is having to kind of reach above into those tools when they shouldn't be.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I think, and the thing that is interesting is this resurgence of multi-page apps, MPAs. And for anybody who's not familiar with that term, that's when you click a link, the page actually refreshes. Like you go to a different page in the browser, and that's
Yeah, the
you're not
server is
using,
sending HTML down, and
right.
it's this kind of dynamic, like almost handoff between a server and a browser.
And so when you get into multi-page apps, for a huge amount of use cases, marketing sites, blogs, simple apps, if you're going to do mapping, you're going to do stuff where like you want people to have a URL addressable piece. We've got all these things that have been built into the platform. We've got preload and prefetch headers. We've got lazy loading on images. We've got really good caching. We've got these CDNs out there like, Netlify, Cloudflare. Like they do such a good job of just making sure that content is right next to you so it downloads really fast. And all of those things kind of mean like the benefits of SPAs aren't as pronounced now when you look at something like really I would say probably 80% of the internet just doesn't need that really heavy, like all JavaScript all the time approach. And it leads to things like it's easier to maintain and it's easier to reason about because you're not building the site twice, right? You don't have the server rendered version and then the hydrated JavaScript version. And now if you want to make changes, you're like trying to figure, okay, well, how do I edit like both the exported JSON that's going to be used by the site and also the generated HTML. And okay, so now like we can build those tools. I know we're seeing tools come out that allow you to do HTML rewriting on the fly for like Next.js, get static props and stuff. But that's a lot of machine for something that would be really straightforward if you're using plain old HTML, right? And so like MPAs, we're talking about them in certain corners. You hear them talked about like they're a brand new idea, but this is the original internet. So why do you think now is the time that we can bring them back in a serious way?
Yeah, I mean, the term MPA is, I think, fairly modern. It's like a response term, which kind of gave us a little hesitancy to use it. Like defining yourself as the opposite of something else is always, you never want to do that. But SPAs have so become the like way that people just think is the default that it's almost like trying to show like, no, this used to be the way that we built websites. Before you could run a JavaScript application in your browser, you would have to stream down HTML. It would be really lightweight. Like for that world, what we think of now as good performance, like that was the only way to build a site that didn't just break, in your IE, whatever version you were on at the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a traditional model that's just been, and it's, if you talk to any PHP developer or someone on Rails, it's not even like an old model. It's the model. It's if you have a server, you're streaming HTML down, and JavaScript and client-side components, they exist to almost like hydrate to kind of become interactive, but
Right.
owning the kind of what happens when you hit that page. The HTML itself usually is owned by the framework that is server bound almost in those cases. So we moved away from that with the move to JavaScript and these isomorphic build your app and it's going to run on the server and in the browser. But by kind of throwing that model together in such a, just kind of all encompassing way where it's an app on the server and an app on the browser, that's an app built for the server should not be the same thing you ship to the browser. And some frameworks get stuck because they can't pull things out of it, shipping a big bundle, a big application to the users. Because of that.
So yeah, and what you're talking about there is something that I think we've heard of as like islands architecture or partial hydration, which I believe, I might be wrong here, but I believe this is something that was kind of pioneered by Astro. Did y'all have prior work that you were building off of?
We were standing on the shoulders of giants on that one. The two people whose work we referenced, Jason Miller of Preact has like kind of the de facto blog post on it from back in 2019. And I think he even grabbed the term first coined by, I'm going to blank on their name. It was the Etsy front-end architect at the time.
Okay.
Someone can probably find it in the show notes. But them together had kind of, I think, either building on her work or kind of working with her on that post. That was the main source of truth that we referenced. So we did not come up with this idea, but I think we are the first framework to build it as a primitive, which
Gotcha.
lets us kind of bring that model of HTML generated and then hydrated or kind of made interactive in much smaller ways, but still keeping the JavaScript experience. So you're not having to learn a server language to kind of compare with your front end language. It has that developer experience of a more modern framework, but the model of an older one. We've kind of paired these two things together in a way we really like.
Got it. Okay, and Katie Seiler Miller is who we are referencing as
front-end
the
architect
Etsy
at Etsy, I think.
So let me drop her her Twitter handle here. Katie is wonderful. If you ever get a chance to hang out with her, you definitely should. But yeah, so this is let's talk a little bit about what the partial hydration means. So in a traditional React app, if I'm going to server-side render this, what ends up happening is, or let's talk about Next, right? Because Next is a model most people have used it. You're if you're building with React, you've probably encountered it. So I'm building a Next.js app, and the way that I'm going to build it is I have a page. That page is going to read some data from an API and then spit it back out on screen. So I'm going to say, all right, I know that this data doesn't change. I'm doing an event listing, so I'm going to get static props. And those static props, that function is going to make a fetch call, load some data, and then return it as props, which I can then access in my components. So if you were doing this in a plain old React app, what would happen is you would load the page, the React component would mount, it would then send off that call to go get those props, but those aren't static. That would be every single time the page loads, you are having to make that fetch request, which can cause like API rate limit issues. It can be a huge data transfer cost. So, okay, let's move that to the server. We're going to do that server rendering once, static props. So now when you render the site, though, that fetch call gets made, and when it gets returned, we inject it into the HTML as JSON. And this is like, if you understand how that works, it's great, right? You have all your data embedded right in the page. If you don't understand how it works, you can do dangerous overfetching. There was actually like, everybody thought it was funny, but it's really just kind of one of the foot guns of this style, where a government website was exposing like social security numbers in the view source because somebody had overfetched data and probably using something like Next.js had returned the whole API response and then was using the component to pluck out the name and email or whatever it was that was needed. But it ended up like printing in the JSON object all of this sensitive data. And if you're not paying attention with your get static props or these other things, you can accidentally send a bunch of data that, first of all, bloats your page because you have to download that. It all has to get sent somewhere. And second of all, can accidentally expose things that you didn't want to expose. Like if you don't filter your response object and just return the fields you need, you can send a bunch of stuff that wasn't supposed to be there. So that then has to go to the browser as your JSON object. You've got this rendered HTML, and then there's more JavaScript that has to, like, once it loads, it reads the whole page, finds the components, turns those back into React components, grabs that JSON data, injects it as props, and then you've got an interactive React app. So that's a lot of work, which is great when you are building something really dynamic, because you immediately get back to interactivity. Lots of things are happening. But like for a header, for a blog post, like, it doesn't make sense, right? Like, now you're shipping that data twice because the content of the blog is going to be in the HTML and also in that JSON object because you have to be able to rehydrate, right? So you're doubling the size of the page and you're doing this hydration action, and really it just doesn't have a benefit. And the classic argument of MPA versus SPA, which is in between page navigation, let's be honest. Like, okay, y'all use Twitter, you look at blog posts. When you see a blog post, how do you use that site? Like, you're going to that site and then you're clicking around? No, you're going to load that plate, you're going to read the article, and then you're going to close it and go back to Twitter. And so all these benefits of SPAs just kind of cease to exist when it's this content sourcing model. I would like to read one page of content, please, and then I'm going to go back to whatever it was I was doing that surfaced this thing. So there's not a whole lot of benefit in doing this extra work, right? So with partial hydration, how would that same blog post work?
Yeah, and the stakes are pretty, blogs and like kind of, it's one of those things, if you don't need it, if you can take the performance cost, you're building a dashboard, totally fine. If you're building like an e-commerce site, like that those, that's a lot of work to do just to get to the kind of moment where that buy button is going to become interactive. And that's time wasted where it is, proven with data that those are users who are bouncing off. Those are dollars lost. Like if you're a business, that's serious. It's, Amazon is one of the fastest sites right now. They don't use React. They don't do that model. The big players can kind of afford to build a team out that can build something for performance and usability of the developer experience. But for a lot of us, the kind of tools that we use aren't really designed for that speed. So
yeah,
that's where we see partial hydration coming in. It's a technology that has been used by a lot of the big players, but no framework has really brought it in to the framework.
What is it? Marco.dev is the eBay framework that I think heavily takes advantage of this approach, where they're building in components, but what they're shipping to the browser is like they server-side render, but then don't bother with that hydration step. So they strip out the JSON, they strip out the JavaScript, and you just get what was rendered from the component. That's huge. Like that's a really nice way to function. And so what I like about this is if you think about it for use cases where like the vast majority of what we're sending down is static, like even with something that feels dynamic, like an e-commerce store, the images, the product descriptions, a lot of what's happening in there isn't going to change that much. What I need JavaScript for is my buy now button. Am I in stock or out of stock? What's my shopping cart look like? And those are sort of little pieces that are like, as the name would imply, islands of interactivity, as opposed to one big interactive app. And so what Astro and Marco and even like Eleventy now has this, I think Slinkity, who Ben Holmes is on your team now. All of that is implying like, well, yeah, you want that interactivity, but you shouldn't have to make the trade-off of like all in or all out on interactivity. Yep. You shouldn't have to ship only HTML or only full JavaScript SPAs. You should be able to say, and this was the original intention of React, is that you would mount a tiny React app into one div or one component on the page, and everything else would just be fine. It was like this sprinkle of interactivity, which, obviously people want all interactivity all the time. And when you start getting into things like state management, where you've got like a header that's login aware, and that login awareness has to like propagate these details all the way throughout the page, you kind of just go, okay, well, we're doing a lot of like state transfer and hopping between components. Maybe it's better to just go full SPA. And I think there's probably a threshold where that just makes sense. You're like, okay, everything is stateful, just go SPA.
Right? So that's where Astro really shines, is that you as a developer can write your entire site with React or Svelte or Vue. We support all the frameworks. And then at almost the component level, you're opting into, all right, this is an island, this is an interactive component. So you get to write the whole site with React. And whatever markup you want, it's going to default to static. So we're going to strip out all the JavaScript. We're going to render it to HTML on the server. And by default, your site has zero JavaScript. It's a static HTML site. And then at a component by component level, you say, give me this buy button interactive, give me this out of stock, give me this shopping cart. You kind of tell Astro what needs to be interactive, and then it's going to do the work for you to create those islands.
Nice. That is very, very cool. So, I feel like we could only discuss this and not ever actually write any code, but I really want to see how this works. So before I switch over, though, let's do a quick, Astro hit 1.0 this week, right? That's huge.
Today, literally, as we are recording this an hour ago.
Nice. And so we've done an episode on Astro before. I've done a little bit of work with Astro as it was in V0. What are the big banner changes that we've seen in Astro in V1?
It's a problem with the V1 is you keep you play around with it through the whole V0 early period, so it's kind of hard to tie any feature back to a certain time. The big ones since we announced that we were kind of getting ready for the V1. I'd say that MDX support, so how you author your content, has really changed. We used to have this kind of custom format for mixing components in Markdown. We just decided to go with the kind of standard at the time.
Nice.
MDX is great. It lets you mix those things. We're super happy with that. Built-in image optimization, so an image component similar to Next.js, is something that Tony on our team worked really hard at. That's something that we actually just really leveraged in our new homepages that we built.
Nice.
So that's super happy. As a user of that, I'm really, really thrilled with that. I'd say that kind of going back a little bit further, but still kind of a highlight of this release, is the way we've built our ecosystem. So by trying to support every framework, right, that's a huge undertaking if you don't do it well. So React, Vue, Svelte, all of those. We have this idea of an Astro add command, which essentially lets you add any of those as an integration into your system. So you're extending Astro based on what you need. So Astro add React, it's going to basically set up your project so that you can create a .jsx component with React.
Great, because I'm not going to lie, that was a stumbling block for me. I had to look it up every time when I was like, oh, I have a React component, and then I'd use it and it would be weird. And then I was like, wait, I thought this just worked. Oh no, I have to include this thing. So having those DX improvements is such a big impact.
Jason, we'll set the stakes here right up front. I think the last time we used this, it was like a V0.0.
This was early
code. And I got to be like, hey, it's early alpha code. Who knows? We'll fix it later. And now the stakes are high. It's a V1. I can't hide behind that anymore, Jason. So if we're gonna look at some code, I'm standing in front of you now, all bugs.
I'm just a founder standing in front of a live stream chat, asking you to judge my code. No, I think this is wonderful. So with that, I think I could probably ask more abstract questions, but I want to start looking at actual code. So I'm going to flip us over and put us into pair programming mode. And I need to go up a level here. There we go. All right. So I am... Oh, before we start, let me do a quick shout. I have this episode, like all episodes, is being live captioned. We've got Vanessa with us here today from White Coat Captioning. That is available on the homepage of the site. So if you want to follow along with the text, you can do so by hitting learnwithjason.dev. The captioning is made possible through the support of our sponsors, Netlify, NX, and New Relic, all kicking in to make this show more accessible to more people. We are talking today to Fred, who is on... Wait, where is it? This one.
Oh, so we would need to add code.
Did I do it right on the first try?
Right?
I did.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, so you go and give Fred a follow, and we are going to be working on astro.build. Nope. There it is. All right, so here is the Astro website. And yeah, with that, I'm gonna hand it over to you. What's the first thing I should do?
Oh God, so there's a couple things. What we're gonna want to do, because you're in your terminal already, which is awesome, is run our create Astro. But I will just give a call at that astro.new. It's a website, it's a domain. It's this great little, if you just want to use Astro in the browser, it's this great way to get started, pick a template, get started really quickly. Powered by StackBlitz. Shout out to them.
Nice. I'm seeing folks doing a new website shout out. That's great. Nice.
Yeah, there it is. I see the link. For us, the Create Astro CLI is a much, I think, more kind of, if you're going to start an actual new repo, a new project, that's what I'd recommend because it's on your system. It walks you through the steps you need to get a project set up. So let's run through that. That's npm create Astro. And at latest is just kind of recommended to kind of clear their cache. It's a bit of a weird npm feature.
Gotcha. Installing. All right. So we are going to create this at, let's call it Astro V1. Just the basics?
I would definitely recommend just the basics for where we're at. I mean, if you're someone who likes to start an empty project is truly empty. That can also work, but just the basics will give you a couple, starter files.
Fancy. Install npm dependencies. I would. Thank you.
Yeah. So shout out to Ben Holmes. You mentioned him, Slinkity creator on our team. Did a ton of work on the CLI.
I'm such a sucker for like little CLI interaction things like that. Make me very happy. Would I like to initialize a new Git repository? I would. Thank you. Would I like to use TypeScript? What do you think, Fred?
So this is up to you. I will give this call out early. If you prefer not to use TypeScript, we're still setting up TypeScript. So Astro is really interesting. It supports TypeScript inside of its templating language, just by default. The way it works is that if you like JavaScript, luckily TypeScript is a superset, so you can just never write TypeScript and you'll be super happy. I'll leave it up to you. If you like TypeScript, then Astro is really, really designed for that. If you don't, it kind of gets out of the way.
I'm just going to go with the recommended setting. And you get to teach me TypeScript as we go now. So
There we go. I'm a plant. I'm a Microsoft plant here to teach you TypeScript. That's the.
I love this.
the
Is
secret.
also great. Like this is just a very very clever way to just immediately get people connected to a community. Love that. All right, so now I can cd into my Astro project, npm run dev. You know what I'm going to do?
Yeah,
I'm just
that's all
going to
you
do
need.
one. I'm going to do one of these because it makes me smile whenever it just works. Because then there it is. Picked up
Oh,
Astro.
what did I just say about bugs? I'm scared. Is this Netlify?
So yeah, all we're doing is running your command, but it lets me also run if we want to do like serverless functions or if we want to use environment variables.
Very
It just
cool.
injects all that from the Netlify environment so that we don't have to configure it anywhere.
Right
And
on.
it's a nice little hack for anybody who uses Netlify. Every framework is detected, so you can just run Netlify dev and it'll automatically start your framework.
Oh, that's cool.
So here we go. Look at us go. We're doing
This
it.
is it. This is it.
You guys y'all
opening
want
up
to see
the code
something?
base.
Look at this. This is one of my favorite things I learned. If I hit Control Z, it suspends, and then I can do one of these. Right, and it's going to open up my code editor, which is going to go. Oops, need to make that a little bit shorter. Right, and then when I come back here, I can hit FG for foreground, and it's back.
What?
Isn't that incredible? I think Sean Grove taught me that. That's so cool.
That's wild. I did not know that.
I feel like I learned something new every day on this show, which is, I mean, that's good. It's the title of the show. It'd be pretty disappointing if I didn't. All right, so let's go. What do we do next?
All right. You're in your. Oh, I always forget you're a right side editor person.
Chaos, right?
Absolute chaos. Yeah, we can just kind of walk through what an Astro project looks like. If you're coming from another framework like Next.js, we take a ton of inspiration from them, so you'll probably see this feeling familiar. Pages is the only really like magic folder, and we use file-based routing. So if you put /foo or foo.astro in there, it's going to be the /foo route. Index is your kind of homepage, that sort of thing. The first thing that probably jumps out to anyone is .astro. So what is that? So we talk about this fact that we support all of your favorite frameworks, but we do ship a really kind of we try to be as basic as possible, server render focused templating language or component language. So the nice thing about only really worrying about server rendering your HTML is we get to strip away a lot of the complexity of reactivity and exporting props using this special tag. Like we just get to get rid of a lot of the complexity by building a framework that was designed for the server, and that's the .astro component syntax.
Nice.
So you can see it here. It's basically divided into two sections: front matter, which is your script that's going to run on the server, and your template, which is essentially HTML. It's HTML compliant with a little bit of magic sprinkled that feels a lot like JSX. So you can kind of add a expression, you can map over an array, that sort of thing. But you can copy and paste any HTML into this, and it's just going to work. It's 100% HTML compliant in that way.
Got it. And there are a few things that happen in here that make me happy. One is I'm a really big fan of this, like just put the CSS right into the component. Single file components, especially early on in a project, they just make sense. Like, I think Dan Abramov said the best file organization plan is to just put everything in one file until it's unwieldy to do so. And I think that like, I don't think he was trolling. I think he was being serious, but it really resonates with me as a way of organizing code, because at first I want to build something that works. I don't want to think about folder structures and whether or not this is in the right place. And is this a utility or is this a component or is this is it something else? Like, I don't know. I don't care. I should put it in the thing. We'll clean up later. Right. And I think that also helps with the, getting away from that idea of like premature optimization in code where you're like, oh, I should extract this into a utility. And then the next thing you know, you're like publishing an NPM package with your utility code. And it's like, hold up, we haven't even shipped this website yet.
Right. Again, it's that story of like, okay, well, how am I going to, we wanted this to be like all in one is a bit of a buzzword, but really like, you don't have to think about these things if you don't want to. You can use our built-in style, our built-in scripting, our built-in templating. It's all just going to work. And then you opt into whatever complexity you want. So bring in your framework, bring in Tailwind. But by default, we're going to give you all the basics you need. And yeah, the co-location here is really nice. It also does scoping by default, so you're not going to have these styles bleed out into the rest of your
Oh,
site.
that's huge. So I don't have to like set up CSS modules. I just write my code and it's gonna scope for me.
Yeah, like you see the H1
Sick.
rule, you'd never want to do that globally because then every H1 across your whole site is going to be styled in that way. But in this
Right.
component, we're scoping it just to this component. It's a really cool little trick that we get to pull off.
Excellent. Okay, so so we saw this is our page, and so what we're looking at is like here, right? So if I go in here and I want to, should I just like blow away everything in here and start?
Yeah, it depends. Do you have something you want to build in mind? It'll help me kind of push us in the right direction.
Let's build. Let's see. Let's build something that. Let's see. I don't have any data on hand that would be writable, so let's do like a
something
listing
that uses Markdown would show off the kind of MDX stuff we've been working on. I think that could be a good direction to go down.
Sure. Yeah, we can do that. I can pull. I have my blog is written in Markdown, so we can just grab a couple posts and throw them in.
Perfect.
Cool.
Let's do it.
All right. So
Yeah,
we're
blow it
gonna
away. We don't need any
set
of
up a
this.
blog.
Get it out here.
Okay, so we got a blog. And in here we want to do some stuff, but we've got we've got this layout. Here's our layout, and it looks like let's see, here's the layout component. So we get props. Props is familiar. I'm used to that. We've got what our actual props are. So we're getting a title, and then we just get to use that. So this is nice. And so I don't need to do anything magic here.
Global is, I'd say, the thing that we do.
Okay.
Which is instead of exports or having to kind of load as a function argument, we really like this idea of everything being a single script. So you notice in every front matter, it's just going to run from top to bottom on the server. So Astro props is how you get your props. There's a couple other like Astro dot magic things for grabbing your URL and different qualities of the site that you're building. But it's really straightforward. You don't need to worry about a special syntax. It's just the Astro global is all you're using. So similar to Deno.
Nice. Okay, so I've got we've got all that. We've got some globals. Are these ones global? Yes, because they're wrapped in global.
Yep.
Perfect. Cool. So that all makes sense. And
I
then
see Bryce Ray in your chat saying no more Pokemon APIs, please. I beg you. Don't worry, Bryce. My new API of choice is the Owen Wilson Wow API.
I'm sorry.
It's amazing. Owen Wilson Wow. I think that's all you have to search. I literally snuck this into our homepage. It is hidden as an Easter egg.
Chaos.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
And it just
Scroll
gives
down.
you.
There's a little audio on the homepage. You can see the audio in the video it gives you. Wow.
Oh, that's great. I don't think I'm sharing my desktop audio, which is really just
it didn't come through.
Yeah, I should fix that, y'all. Why am I not doing that? But this is great.
Sorry, total tangent, but
amazing. We can use it. Let's absolutely use this. This is perfect. So.
Data fetching in Astro is really easy too. We have top level await and fetch natively built in, so this is actually a fun thing to show off.
Okay, so there are a couple things that if you've never used them before, we've got this slot, which is where any component inside of the layout goes. So layout, and then all of this goes into wherever slot is placed. Correct?
Yeah, it's basically defining where your content goes if it's wrapping anything. So pass it through, and it's going to be passed right through.
And then with this one, this is a card. We've blown these away, but you can see this is pretty familiar from a if we close up the style, we can see this is a component, right? We've all written these before. They're great. That's all we need.
This is the kind of HTML with JSX like syntax kind of shining through. You can see on line 12, we're taking the href prop and putting it in to an attribute on the A. So this should feel really familiar to anyone who's coming from JSX or even Svelte and Vue. This idea of taking stuff from for us, it's the front matter, it's a server prop, but we're going to render it out. Again, all this is running on the server, or if you're building a static site, it's all running at build time. No, again, if you load up your network tab, no JavaScript being sent at all right now. Since you're on the dev server, there might be a couple like HMR, like dev server things, but you built this site to production, 0 JavaScript by default. You're kind of well on your way there.
Yeah. This is okay. Great. So we're not going to use this one, so we can drop this one out, and I'm going to. What do I want to do first? I'm gonna start by just let's build something right at the top level. So I want to get a wow. So we'll await, fetch, and then we can check if wow. If it's not okay, then we can, we'll just like error. And then if it does work, we'll just do, let's see, const.
I mean, we're going to need your audio pipe through to chat. Is there any way to do that? It's the essential part of a good wow.
All right, let me see if I can add this very quickly. I'm going to add a audio input capture. We're going to use the MacBook Pro, so I'm going to get the...
This is like the equivalent of live coding for streamers. Messing with your audio setup during a live stream.
All right, so I got to get rid of this one because that's the wrong one. We don't want that. So MacBook Pro, that's the wrong thing. So we're going to remove... See if I can do, what is it, display capture? This display audio output capture, that's what I'm after. We're going for the MacBook Pro, and we're going to set this as, why don't you have any output?
So many wows in your chat, wow.
So I think I'm missing something critical here, which is I don't have anything like loopback installed. And so unless this works...
it's quite all right. I think everyone could just press the
button.
On their own
you're all gonna have
time.
to just believe. Let me see if maybe I can. Yeah, I can't get the audio off the MacBook capture for reasons I don't understand. So we're just gonna. I'll figure this out. We'll fix it in a future stream. And
we'll just both have to. We'll recreate it.
We'll steer.
When you hear it, you just have to say it.
Yeah. What's your? Give me your best Owen Wilson.
Wow! Oh no! I coughed. Wow! Wow!
Wow!
Wow!
Oh man!
I like yours. Have you practiced that before, or was that really your first time?
No, I was just listening to Owen Wilson and thinking that maybe I could be like that.
I've practiced mine, and I think yours is better.
Let's get a res JSON, and then what that should give us is a wow that we can then use. And the way that I'll use it to start is I'm just gonna and then I'm gonna do I'm gonna follow my instincts here that I can just dump this.
Yeah, I mean, you tell me when you want me to jump in, but this looks perfect.
Unexpected token, I screwed something up, which means maybe there is a error. What don't you like?
Yeah, it seems like response.json. So that's usually what happens when your fetch is returning something that isn't actually JSON.
Mm-hmm. Which means I probably need to read the docs. Let's look here. Do I have to?
Oh yeah, you're probably getting the homepage HTML.
Am I not?
If you scroll up,
I bet I didn't.
Random.
Yeah, that's what it was. That's what it was. I thought I was doing the. Yup.
That error always messes with me. It's like a native error that comes from...
Did I or did I not inform you? There we go.
Well, now you got too many URLs. There we go.
All right, that should work. So we'll try that again and come back out here. And there we go. All right, so now, wow. We can get all of these. So we've got a poster. Let's do this. We'll just pull the poster up for now because that's what we can actually use. We're not going to be doing all that. So I'm going to image source, and that will be, I'm just going to grab the first one out actually.
I think Chad is now counting the wows that we've there's a wow counter somewhere.
Wow. I think we just synchronized that one. And the alt will be, I think there should be a description here. Is there? Total wows in movie 8.
Stop it. I didn't know that. That's amazing.
Let's see.
current
Okay,
WoW.
so
This is the
here's
eighth
what we'll
WoW.
do.
Yeah.
We will do
Oh my God.
if I want to do hybrid, do I do it like this?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this will be Owen Wilson as, and we'll stick in wow.character in wow.movie. Okay, so that should give us, let me close that. And that should give us a, cool. All right.
There
So
you go.
then we need to do a little bit of styling. We can do a width 100%. And that kind of solves
Nice.
that problem, right? I'm going to make it even smaller so that we can actually see it. So let's call it 250 pixels. Okay, so now we can actually see. And if we reload the page, we get a different movie every time. Wow. I didn't realize he was in The Haunting.
Wow.
So
Yeah, he's got a lot of weird little roles, but he always sneaks in WoW and you're crazier than a road lizard. I don't know if you've ever heard him use that phrase. Google Owen Wilson crazier than a road lizard. Sorry, not you don't have to do this now. It's a video, but someone has like mashed up the fact that like
he said
this
that
is
in
in every
more
script
than
that
one
has this.
movie.
It's his, like some director is clearly like, oh, and just like improv something. He's like, all right, I'll play the hits, and he just does that
Wow.
phrase.
Wow. All right, I'm gonna pull this up. I'm gonna drop this in chat. Y'all watch that on your
You
own
do not
time.
need to play this right now, but it's wild that he is that predictable.
Okay, so we've got this. This is what's happening. What were we doing?
Yeah.
I rabbit holed so hard
Ye
here.
old blog just hit me. Just hit me. Ye old wow.
Wow. So
There's a couple of different directions we could go here. I'll throw this at you. We could add a front-end framework, so play around with React or Svelte or Vue or whatever you like. We have that image component, so we can kind of optimize this image a little bit more and give it some sizes. There's
let's
picture
do that
component as
actually
well.
because this is clearly way too big. So let's optimize this a little bit. So if I want to optimize my image, what do I do?
So it's taking a step back. There's a lot of really cool features of Astro that are kind of stored in integration. So not everyone wants Markdown, or sorry, MD. Markdown is built in, but MDX, if you really want that, that's an integration. Not everyone uses React, Svelte, Vue. So I don't know if you can display a browser here, but I would just call out astro.build/integrations. Is essentially a catalog of all of these different things that you can basically browse, find your favorites. It's a kind of big part of this ecosystem that we're building here. So Tailwind, Party Town.
Lots of good stuff.
They're all here. And Astro Add is kind of your window into this. So Astro Add, the name of any one of these, will add it into your project.
Okay, so
for this, we'd want Astro Add, AstroJS/image. I think we fixed that. It might just be image for our own built-in ones, but just do image for now. I think that'll be the easiest one.
Which one is it? Like official?
If you go to official, yeah, we have image there.
Image. So
yeah.
I do image.
Yeah, I think I'm 95% sure that at AstroJS/image is actually what you're supposed to do. But this is me being on a live stream scared.
I'm going to use NPX because I don't have Astro installed globally.
Yes, that's a great call. Here, let's go through this and then I'll say one thing.
Astro will make the following changes to your config file. This is good. You know what this is? This is consent, and I appreciate it. Like I like it when CodeGen helps me. I really don't like it when CodeGen just touches my stuff without telling me what's about to happen. So showing me what's about to happen so I can go and like review it is really wonderful. So
this is a really nice feature that Nate Moore on the team built. It's nice because it's also teaching you, like, you haven't even opened your config file yet. This is your first time seeing it. We're not just like changing it without showing you. We're also kind of teaching you how that file works as well.
Mm-hmm.
I will say every project that comes from one of these, create Astro templates has a Astro command. So we try to push people to say npm run astro add instead of npx, just because not everyone's familiar with npx. You might not know. Npm run astro, like if you just run like without any command after astro, you'll see the help output. You can kind of get a sense of what you can do.
Nice. Yeah, that's a good Good call. And this is great. So we have a lot of things we can do. Very cool. All right. So I'm going to then foreground this. Okay. So we've got our setup. Oh, we need to restart anyways because I changed the config. So I'm going to dev again. And we're off to the races. Okay. So now I have the component installed, but I haven't actually used it yet. We're still on the plain old HTML image tag, which is doing the job, but I would then have to go and manually update this to be optimized for my site, which I don't want to do. I would rather that a robot did it for me. And I'm assuming I import something to make that happen.
Yep. You're going to want to do an import of an image component. So squiggly bracket image from at astro.js/image/components. So for this package, I just know because I've memorized docs like a weirdo that it's stored from there.
And is that the whole thing, or do I need more?
I think that's all you need. Let's check it out. We can kind of consult the docs as well. If you...
Width and height cannot both be undefined, so I'm going to...
Yeah.
Well, let's go with
so instead
width.
of the CSS width that you define, you're going to want to do it here. This lets us optimize the image based on that width. So passing as a prop kind of gives us insight into the width you're looking for.
Aspect ratio must be included. Is there an option for... Let me maybe bust this out a little bit so we can see what's going on.
Yeah, check the API response. I wonder if it gives you a width and height, and you could probably calculate it yourself.
Oh, that's a good point. Let's just go back here and actually look at it.
Yeah.
Gives me a poster. The poster does not have a width and height. So let's just grab this one. We'll figure out what the width and height is. 1280 by 1920. So what is that? 1920 divided by 1280, a 1 to 1.5.
Yeah, some of them might be more squished than others.
That'll be fine.
When you import an image from your own file system, you get all this for free. So this is only because it's coming from a remote source. We don't know the right width and height, and we're trying to prevent you from creating a layout that's gonna, shake around and make a bunch of layout shift as it goes.
Okay, get the butts off the screen. There we go. That's a slightly better one.
Quick refresh. A quick refresh. I think that's not 1.5. You can actually do like the math literally in the prop. You can literally say 250 times 1.5.
Oh.
That's something that I definitely do a bunch. Yeah, or that, exactly. Oh, sorry, no, in aspect ratio, then you'll want just the number 1.5 and it'll calculate it for you.
Oh, I gotcha.
Oh no, maybe that might be width to height.
Width to height, so then that's 0.67?
Oh my god, there you go. Nice.
Close enough. Close enough. There we go. I'm happy with that.
Perfect.
Oh, Zoolander.
Yeah, so again, that's there to kind of protect you from building a bad layout that would shift as the image loads. Obviously, annoying to have to do with remote images, but when it's a local image, you get all that for free from the file system.
Great, great, great. This is good.
Wow. Good math.
Wow.
Good math, Jason. Wow.
Wow. So now we've used the image component, and I'm going to just inspect what happened here because I always like poking around under the hood. And so what we get is, instead of I'm just going to maybe stop touching things there. Oh, you know what I'm going to do instead? Because you can't do this with a lot of JavaScript frameworks, is I'm going to view source.
Oh yeah, you'll get it all right there.
So here's our image, and we've got a class. So we've got scope classes, we've got our width and our height, we've got a source. Is this using like an IPX or something?
Yeah, so this is, because again, what we're doing is actually optimizing that image for you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's basically proxying through at dev time, it's a special endpoint.
Mm-hmm.
At build, it just builds it to a new URL for a static site.
Nice.
But yeah, we are processing that image on the fly during development for you.
And then putting in these hints for like lazy loading and async, which is great. Although with this one, like
you can obviously control.
And something I saw that was interesting is on things that are above the fold like this, you don't want it to be lazy. It'll actually do weird stuff. So I want this one to be loading eager, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a good, like, very intentional thing to call out just about for anyone who cares about why a lot of the features are the way they are, why we built Astro the way it is. Like, we are very much trying to build defaults that are performance first, and then you kind of opt into um, the more eager stuff.
What have
I
I
wonder why
broken?
that's. Yeah, I don't know.
We're just going to leave it as a default. Like I don't need to hyper optimize this right now.
Well, now it's all broken. So
Wait, did
I
I?
don't know what happened. You might have been rate limited.
Oh, interesting. What's it? Oh, it's 404ing on all of these.
Yeah.
Let me stop and restart because that was definitely working and has now stopped working. I probably touched something.
Yeah, my thought is that you're getting rate limited from the Owen Wilson API, but
Well, it's getting these responses, so that means...
oh, you're right. No, it's just the image. What did we do?
I don't know.
Crazy as a road limiter. Blizzard. Probably this is where I would command Z my way out of things.
I'm feeling like that's it's missing 404 on the HMR.
So that's because you have the dev tools up. I think it's missing a source map there.
Oh, maybe I just broke it by
the image.
Okay. We're gonna get back here, and if I go to here, does it work? Like, is it? Yeah, it seems to be the
something in the image component.
Yeah, it doesn't like my something that I've done.
All right.
I'm gonna.
You know what? I can't hide behind beta bugs, but v1.0.0, there's always going to be something.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it's this image endpoint is 404ing for some reason.
Yeah, very odd.
Okay, well, that was cool when it worked. It'll be working again soon. And now
just
my
refresh it one too many times.
Tag is not working either, which is concerning. Oh, you know what this is? We did get rate limited because now it's not working on the...
Oh, you think rate limited on the asset, not the API?
I think we might have gotten rate limited on the asset. Yeah, it doesn't like us on this asset. Okay, so the Owen Wilson API is sick of our crap. That's okay. Well, I mean, the good news is it's nothing to do with Astro. This is we're using something else, so that's fine. We'll just leave that as is because it was working, and maybe we'll have to swap that out to a different API later. But what I want to do in the meantime is I want to do two more things. So I want to get a feel for how this MDX stuff works. So I'd like to write a little bit of Markdown, and then maybe what we can do after that is, so here's what I'd like to do. Let's make a little ode to WoW. And the way that I want to do that is I want to write a little blurb that'll sit to the right here. And then I also want to do a button that we can build in React that will let us just trigger as many WoWs as we want. And I think the way that we will do that is by using the response here, and we'll just hook the audio up. So whenever somebody hits it, it'll just play.
Perfect. I love it.
Wow.
There's a couple. So MDX, I'll kind of give the pitch on it is, and MD and Astro in general. So using Markdown to author your content. You can use a CMS, you can use an API, kind of like what we've been doing. But Markdown is special in that it actually lives on your file system. So you can either create a page with Markdown, like literally like put a Markdown file in that pages directory and it becomes its own page.
Okay.
Give it a layout to kind of wrap that content. Or you can do what I think is more what you're describing here is like import it into an Astro component and use it almost like a component. So literally like this MDX is actually going to be essentially a component language, just like React, that's going to be put onto the page.
Right. So what I'm going to... Yeah, let's do this. I'm going to create one of these. And then what I would like to do is let's get a... that's going to be Markdown. And then we want to do a wow button here that is React. So starting here, I want this to be a component. So my instinct is I go in here and can I just make it markdown? Like, can I just say like o.md?
Yeah. So MD is built into Astro.
Or
You can use
MDX,
it
MD?
as much as you want. MDX is going to need that integration to kind of opt into the component mixing.
Let's do it like that. Let's do it with the component. So I'm gonna suspend npm run astro add MDX just like that.
Yep.
Okay.
Just like that.
I want to import MDX. Yes. Gonna save the MDX dependency. Great, and then we will pull that back up. All right, got to restart it anyway. So we're gonna do one of these. Now that we know that it's not broken.
It looks like the images are coming back once Cloudflare thinks you've calmed down. You're basically you're in Owen Wilson timeout.
I was on Owen Wilson timeout. That really is unfortunate. So I guess there's some kind of probably like a 60 hits per minute or something that we cleared. This is dope. This is great. Okay, all right, now I'm ready. So I have now in here the MDX is set up. So I want to create o.mdx. All good?
Yep.
Okay.
All good.
And then up here, I would be able to add some things if I needed in the markdown. But what I'm going to do instead is I'm just going to return back. Let's go with a div, and this div. You know what? I don't need any of that, right? Because I can just say like, there is no greater contribution to the cinematic, the cinematic arts than
Like we
Owen.
need a background, just kind of like triumphant, like speech at the end of a movie where you've overcome the obstacles. You're Churchill now giving your World War speech.
Oh, can I do it, Churchill? Hold on. There's no greater no, that's not him. That's Nixon. What am I doing?
That was Nixon. It still worked. I don't know if I would have picked up on it if you hadn't said anything. Yeah, that's an old white man ruling a country. That sounds about right. A lot of the like jowl shake.
And Owen Wilson's wow. We are all blessed to be born in an era where we can experience this excellence. Okay, so we got that. Get some word wrapping going, and then the other piece that I want to do is let's actually move that component into here, because then we can try a couple other pieces. Because what we'll be able to do is bring this in and then pass the audio in as a prop, so that we can kind of see how it all interacts. So if I do this, then I just import.
So this is where MDX is probably the newest part that I'm least familiar with. So we might have to pull up the docs from this. I'm not going to have it all memorized the same way.
Let's see if I'm just.
The nice thing is that our TypeScript, again, you're getting pretty good TypeScript types, even though you're not really writing any TypeScript here.
If this just works, I'm gonna squeal. Unexpected character before name. Oh, that's my HTML comment. Let me go back here.
Yeah, comment. So it is JSX. So I think, yeah, because MDX is more JSX based, you do lose a lot of that.
Look at it go, y'all. Okay, so now we've got this cool thing going on, and if I inspect, it
you gotta
comes
use
out,
a little markdown though. Give it like a little bold, maybe on the wow, bold italics on the quoted wow.
That is a great point. No greater contribution than Owen Wilson's wow. And we will just link right to this API.
Yeah,
and back we go, and look at that. Bada bing, bada boom. So this is beautiful. So we've got that set up, and then I can go in here and do like let's go. I'm just gonna clean some of these out that we're not using. I'll do a section. We'll make it display grid. We'll do a grid template columns, and we will go with 250 pixels and auto, or 1FR, I guess. And then we'll set a gap of, we'll say 2 rem. And hopefully that gets us, that's close enough. So we've got this little piece here. It doesn't like my wow button. Oh, because I need to wrap this in like a div or something, don't I? So I'm going to just do that out here. This will be our... Oh no, I have an idea. Okay. Fix my typo. Okay, so now we've got this kind of layout that we can work with.
The problem is I can't say wow now either. I've trapped myself in any response to that. Wow. I'll just say a human, Nano and Wilson. Wow.
All right, so then I want to do an npm, because now I want the button to work, right? So I'm going to do an npm run astro add just React.
Yes, sorry.
Okay.
Covered. Yes.
Sorry, I totally broke you.
Yeah, no. It's all right. I'm back. Yeah. So React, Preact, Svelte, Vue, Solid.js, Lit HTML. Those are the main ones that we officially support. But really, again, you kind of mentioned this early on in the intro, like the idea that every framework started as like render this component on the page and then grew up into like build your whole site with it. We're still just tapping into that, like the React V1 story, which was, render this component on the page. So
yeah,
it works with every framework. We just need to build integrations or let the community kind of invest in them as well.
Okay, so here is our setup. We are ready to go. We've got this ode.mdx. I'm going to make a new component, which is going to be wowbutton.tsx.
Yep.
And
so far, so good.
Wait, why did... Hello? I've never seen this one.
Yeah. It's
interesting. Okay, so what I'll do is we're going to export function wow button, and that's going to return to start just a button. Okay.
Someone in chat mentioned, we support all these frameworks. What about just plain old HTML?
Button type attribute.
The .astro syntax is meant to be built essentially on top of HTML. So if you just paste HTML into a file and call it .astro, that's a valid component. I can't remember if we actually shipped literally .html as a supported thing. I'd have to check, but if you're looking for HTML support, it's built in by default, just using that .astro file extension.
Let's see. Does anybody know what?
Oh, you might. You know what? Go back over that. So you're using TSX, and my guess is that
doesn't like my button type. Open.
Yeah.
Button type. It's gonna be. You're gonna be a button.
I've never seen that. Is that an extension you have?
No idea. Now it doesn't like things. No interface intrinsic elements exists.
It's kind of odd. My guess is that you don't have @types /React installed.
That is.
I don't think we installed it by default.
I don't think we did. So let me npm install let's see, dev @types React. Okay, and then we'll foreground, and you should be quiet now. You are quiet now. Haha.
Yes.
Okay, so now we've got our wow button, and if we come into our ode, I should be able to import wow button from wow button.
So I'm very, this is just that is your default means that Astro syntax must be doing something right. But because we're in MDX, your imports are actually below the front matter. It's kind of the weird thing about jumping between the two.
Oh.
We used to do it that way because we loved our own custom syntax, but in MDX, you really don't need the front matter for a component like this.
No front matter for our component. So we're going to just drop this in, head over here. It is serving. We should have a button. Bam! Beautiful. Wow. Okay, so wow. So now we've got our wow button, and I want to bring in a prop, which means what I have to do, like a type of props, and that's going to be, we'll do audio link, audio URL. Yeah, and that's going to be a
Were
string.
you just playing around when you said you'd never use TypeScript? I thought you said like,
I've used like
you got this.
minimal
You figured
TypeScript.
You figured it out.
So I'll do audio URL, and that's going to be
You type the object then.
like that.
Yeah, exactly.
There we go. All right. I kind of know how this works. So, so then we've got our piece here, and what I want to do is probably something gross, which is handle click. What we should do, just so everybody's aware, what we should do is use an actual HTML audio element, but I'm shoehorning a React example in. So bear with me here. We're going to do this. We're going to do an event, prevent default. And you are going to require me to do something that I don't... how do you type these? This is...
You can just turn it into a .jsx.
Isn't it like a
all
React
these problems go away.
HTML submit?
Yeah, so this is where it's like, if you don't want to use TypeScript, you don't have to. If you do, it's there for you.
Oh, it's synthetic event or something, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
All right, there we go. So we've got a synthetic event, and then I can do... we're going to take our... can I do this from memory? Audio equals new audio. And then we want the audio dot source to be our audio URL. And then we want the audio dot play. I think. Does that need to like...
Looks good to me.
It might it might need to onload, but we'll on click.
Yeah, let's try it. What could go wrong? What's the worst that could happen? People in chat are also saying if you just inline this, you get those types for free. But
do you really?
Yeah, or like TypeScript infers the types.
You know what?
I like this.
That's a great idea. Let's do that, because that makes me happier than trying to do this stuff. Right? This is great. Beautiful. See, this is good. This is good. All right. Now I think y'all aren't going to be able to hear this because I didn't figure out how this works, but I'm going to refresh the page. And it didn't make any noise. Failed to load resource. Okay, it's not doing anything, which leads me to believe that I've screwed something up. I might need to wait for this to load. You're right that I don't need the event in the first place. So the audio source is audio URL. I think I need to like add event listener, and it's going to be load, right? And then we can have it play. Because I think that...
Wait, no. Chat's figured it out before either of us did. So this is Astro trying to help you out, which is saying every component by default is going to be static HTML. It hasn't loaded this code for you. I just was like, I'll just check down in chat. Maybe they have an idea. And it's people screaming, no!
Oh, I love it. Okay, so
it's my literally one job to know this and catch it quickly.
So I need to do one of these?
Yes. So Astro by default, 0 JavaScript. That means you need to opt in when there is JavaScript that you need.
Okay, so I did fail to fetch dynamically imported module. Oh, but we didn't actually pass the URL, which is the whole problem. So what I need to do is set an audio URL, which needs to be our audio URL, which I need to then get in here, which means I do it like this, like that. And then audio URL equals astro.props as props. Is that right? Am I making stuff up?
I don't know. Let's check the docs. This is, again, much newer. I don't think it goes in the front matter because, again, the MDX doesn't use front matter the way Astro does. I think that there's a different system in MDX. This is kind of the trade-off we made, was like, we're just going to do whatever MDX says on this.
Gotcha.
So these are our docs on it. But
installation, manual install, config, we got that. add MDX pages. We're not doing that. We're doing components. So
Yeah, let's see.
here, exported properties.
Let's see. If you search the page for props, that might be the right thing.
Content equals
that's
Astro
inside of
props.
Astro.
That's right.
Oh, I
And then
swear this
because
is
we've got
imported.
it's in the front matter. So let's try it and see what it does.
Yeah, but again, you're
No.
in that you're in MDX, so there is no front matter.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Okay, so I'm gonna just
Ben is saying we didn't document this. If Ben is watching and can post what it is, I think it's something on like, oh, it's just a global variable, props.audio URL. You can try that, see if that works.
where am I?
Inside
I
of
got very
o.mdx.
What is this? Oh, I guess I need that here. Props.audio URL.
Yeah, so Ben is saying it's just a global in MDX. And I don't know if TypeScript is supported, so I'll just keep that out for now. Let's
Get out of
minimize
here.
Yeah, top line as well. Number 1. Let's get that out of there. All right, let's see if that works.
Audio URL is not
URL
defined.
not defined.
I need to tell it
Yep.
to exist.
That's an MDX thing.
Props is not defined. Astro is not defined.
No, it seems like it's...
Props? Nope.
No. Try it in the on line 7. Just try props.audio URL down there. I wonder if it's... Because export const destructuring, I think it's just mad at that. And then get rid of that line. Yeah, there you go.
Maybe.
Oh, maybe not. Let's see.
Wow button. Props is not defined.
That's an old thing.
That's, you know what? We're going to turn it off and, whoops. Turn it off and turn it on again. That's how we're going to solve this problem.
Waiting for framer. There you go. Nice. Okay, let's see if that...
Oh, it doesn't
Oh, Astro's ready. Oh, is it trying to hit it?
Yeah, it's not responding. Something's
we
missing.
It somehow.
Okay, so
let's because I don't know what your timing's like. We can move Wow button out of MDX. This is like kind of a hat on a hat. Like MDX is pretty new, and I wonder if this is just an edge case that we're hitting of.
Okay, so let's. Did you say a hat on a hat?
Yeah, I don't think I used that correctly. That's a great expression though. Like Owen Wilson saying "wow" and "crazier than a red lizard" at the same time. It's like, oh, you don't need to do both. Just do one. That's a hat on a hat.
It's great. It's just chaos. I love it. Okay, so we're gonna put one of these here and one of these here.
Yeah, again, this should be working. I don't know if this is just new code or something we haven't tried before, but
let's go up to components.
I'm sure there's a bug fix already being worked on based on chat.
Why don't these?
Oh no, Nate's just saying something wasn't passed in.
Import path cannot.
Oh no! I pulled the ripcord too soon. It was fine according to chat. Although no, we were still seeing that weird hanging thing. I don't know what that was.
Son of a
But it shouldn't have been hanging. The hanging issue. Yeah, there it is.
Really? Dang, y'all. This is not my proudest moment. It's okay. Let's try this a piece at a time here. We also got to figure out why this is hung. And I don't know.
I think that bug was causing it to hang, which is something to dig into, but that's my guess.
Now it's unhappy. It's unhappy because failed to load module. SSR doesn't like ode.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I'm
sure going
ode is in a weird spot.
Back here because this one needs MDX.
Yeah,
and it doesn't like that, but it works when you do it that way. There it is. Okay, so here's our ode to Wow. And it's not getting my URL.
Is audio URL null? It might just be Wow. Sorry, on that line, the prop, I think that's just an undefined. Is it Wow?
Oh, you're right, because the actual prop is audio, not audio URL. This should solve it. This will make it work. Okay, so there's no error.
I mean, you got to tell us what you're hearing.
Yeah, there's no error, but it's not playing, which leads me to believe that we didn't hydrate it this time. No, we did. Okay, so let's console log our way to victory, as you do. So we'll go in here, and I'm just gonna console log the audio URL, and then we will also console log.
See if that load event is loading. That's my best guess, is this actually might be.
Okay, so we've got 3 different events, all of which should load something. So we get our audio URL. That is correct. I click,
Nice.
it handles that, and then our event never fires. So
Try to go back to just play. I don't think you need the event listener. I think that was the 0JS getting in the way.
yep, that was it. It works.
Nice.
So we've got...
How was the wow? What kind of wow were we? Is it like a
It's a good-
excited wow, an angry wow?
Wow. It's a hopeful wow.
Much like this code base. Hopeful. So much opportunity.
Oh man, this is great. Okay, so I mean, this is cool though. So like we were able to pretty quickly mix a whole bunch of stuff, and I would say the majority of the shenanigans here are me not understanding how code works, not necessarily issues with Astro. So a few things to shout out that I love. The first and foremost, the CLI experience is dope. The fact that I never had to touch this and it's configured properly is like just chef's kiss, wonderfully done. All other frameworks, please take notes. This is great. I think the other piece that I really like here is, you know, this kind of zero config setup of being able to do these things where I don't have to do magic. I don't have to do really anything, right? I also don't want that. This is like, okay, I get how to write React. I understand how this stuff works. I understand enough about TypeScript to be able to write props like that. And I understand enough about HTML. I get this slot piece. Like it all just sort of tracks for me where I don't feel like I'm super outside of my comfort zone. And that is, I feel like that's kind of the secret to a framework, is making it feel like it's powerful. It gives me things that I didn't have before, but it's familiar enough that I can actually do the work. So we've got like maybe 5 minutes left here. Do you want to try to do something else, show any particular pieces off, or do you want to dig into, let's see, audio questions? Anybody and anybody have questions about how this works? Any Astro Q&A for Fred? Or we can do a lot of things. What do you want to talk about, Fred?
If you want to leave time for a Q&A, that obviously makes a lot of sense. I would say the last piece of anything is getting it built, previewed, and deployed.
Oh yeah, let's do that.
I don't know. There's probably a good hosting company we could use for this. I don't know.
I suspect you're right. Yeah, let's get add, right, and then we will get. Wait, what's my? Did this just get set up as a? Okay, good. So this is a brand new fresh setup. So I will get commit and say feature code after episode, and then let's GitHub repo create, and I want to push an existing local repository. That's this one here, and we're going to call this one learn with Jason Astro V1, and we'll make it public. I do want to add a remote. We'll call it origin. And I would like to push my commits. Thank you very much. Okay, so now that we've done that, I'm going to netlify init. And this should let me create and configure a new site. I'm going to put it on my own team. We'll call this Astro V1. And my build command auto-populates to Astro build. We know the output function. We're not actually using functions, so we can leave that as the default. And netlify.toml, I shouldn't need one, so I'm just gonna skip that. And this isn't, so I have an error where for whatever reason my learn with Jason org will not keep its auth, so I'm going to now, we'll just open this and connect it manually. So I can run netlify open. That opens up the app dashboard. I can go to my site settings and build and deploy. and I'm just going to link it to a repository. So I'll go to
Nice.
GitHub, and I don't need the Netlify for today. So I come back, learn with JSON, search for Astro. Here's my V1, and all of these things are good. So I'm going to deploy.
While that runs, we can also check out the preview command,
Oh,
which
yeah.
lets you basically preview the build. I don't know if you've run the build yet, so you can run it locally first. To
npm
build it,
run
and then
build.
build. Yeah. So this is essentially what's going to be happening right now in Netlify. So it's doing the build, and there's a couple of console logs that you're going to see there.
All
And
right,
the preview
my-
is going
yeah.
to display it.
Okay.
So there you go. So this is the optimized minimal JavaScript. This is what you'd see in production.
Whoops. I actually turned on. Did you know that Command Shift U opens up VoiceOver? That's cool.
I was about to try it. I'm not going to try that just for fear of breaking our stream.
But so yeah, I hit Command Alt U, which opened up View Source. Which again, this is a thing that's kind of hard to do when you open it up in like a Next site, because it's just a ton of extra script and stuff. Or any like SPA style site, you'll either see just a div, or you're going to see all that generated output, all that generated script, which is a little harder to read. But like, this is just HTML. I know HTML. I can debug this. And here's everything. Let's see. Everything that was generated by Astro is on line 21 here. This is our like minified script. So here's our style, some script. How much are we looking at? It's not nothing.
So this is right. It's kind of the funny thing of React, of all the frameworks, right? You're bringing one component in. You're paying like a 30 kilobyte cost because it's React.
Oh,
so
that's a good point.
That script tag is all of React just for that one component.
Yeah.
You start to, like, when you're using Astro, you do start to see like the value of a Preact or even the Svelte and Vue, which are all a much smaller footprint by default.
And here is our running site, so y'all can go check that out.
Oh, wait, now I still haven't actually heard. I've only heard you imitate a wow.
Let's see here. We're just gonna.
Oh, you know what? I will call out. So because this is all generated at build time, the randomness isn't actually happening in the server. So it's every time you build, you're going to get a new wow.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So if we want it to be actually random, we would need to then go in and like add the client side hydration.
Yeah.
But that's okay. We don't need it, right? Like,
or the other thing which you haven't checked out here is Astro has this really easy way to opt into a server deployment. So we really like the simplicity of a static build, but if you needed to run in the server, render each request differently, that's just a couple lines of config away.
Nice. Okay. So where should somebody go if they want to learn more? We've got let's see, here's the Astro integrations. We already shared those. Here's the docs. Where would somebody go if they want to do the like dynamic part, the server?
There's a page on server side rendering. We can jump over that. That's definitely where I would take a look. But if you go to integrations, or actually no, deploy, if you scroll up on the sidebar, you'll see a beautiful Netlify deployment guide there for you to check out. It has the instructions for how to get SSR deployed to Netlify, because that's really where the host kind of ends up being the special thing. So
Nice.
Astro add Netlify is a thing. It will let you
very
basically
cool.
deploy to Netlify as an actual function that's going to run in the server.
That's great. Okay, so yeah, you install a Netlify adapter. So Astro add Netlify. That will install all of these pieces, and then you can run it on the edge. Oh,
Yeah.
that is cool.
Cool
Okay.
stuff you can do. Yeah.
Yeah, that is really exciting, because what the edge functions do is that means that your SSR is going to execute at the CDN edge, so really close to your users. And you're going to get access to things like if you want to do geolocation, if you want to get access to the headers and the cookies and those sorts of things. You can get that in the serverless functions, but it's really nice to do it in the edge because it's so fast, it's so close. So very, very cool stuff there. That might even be worth I see Nikki in the chat. But yeah, lots of very cool things that we could do with this. Unfortunately, we are out of time today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take everybody back to the homepage of the site. Remember, this episode, like all episodes, has been live captioned. And because we ran out of time, the live captioning turned off. But that live captioning has been provided by Vanessa at Whitecoat Captioning today. And it is made possible by Netlify, NX, and New Relic. While you're checking out things on the site, make sure you go to the schedule. Go get subscribed. You can follow on Twitch, add on Google Calendar, follow on YouTube, anywhere where you get your content, so that we get you don't miss an episode. We got a lot of really, really good stuff coming up. We got Adam Argyle coming up on Thursday and a whole bunch more. So make sure you go and check that page out. Fred, any final words for everybody?
This has been a lot of fun. Thanks for giving this opportunity to show off Astro. I'd say the new website, astro.build, it's been totally redesigned. It's a big launch day for us, so we're all just super thrilled to see people playing around with it, kicking the tires, and yeah, we're really excited about where we go from here.
I only got one word for how I feel about this new Astro launch, and that is wow. We'll see y'all next time.
Wow.